again. This is Lighthouse 1111 Spirituality. You will never drive, talk. I first want to talk about something that popped up in the news, I think it was yesterday. And it was talking about, sorry, I'm just going to click straight in. We ain't playing today, I'm just going to go straight in. It was talking about reparations for the Caribbean and African countries for the slave trade, and I was watching, I can't remember what news channel, like GB News or something like that, and it was saying, so they had a panel and they had like a for and against the idea. Apparently some university sort of worked out it could be between £200 billion to 19 trillion, I think, or something like that. They worked out basically that's how much slave trade sort of made for the developed countries that we see today. Basically the starting of how they sort of industrialized themselves and made trains and build what they needed to build the infrastructure for them to grow and sort of dominate the world as we see today. So some of the Caribbean and African countries have sort of joined together and have basically said, look, we want reparations for for the Africans and the Caribbean that sort of their ancestors that had to work the plantations or the slave masters' house, obviously as cleaners and servants and what have you. So I just wanted to get your idea, basically. I just want to talk about it really, because I thought it was a kind of a good topic to kind of start today's driving chat. And I hope some people who watch this get it and not just think I'm just trying to be funny or what have you. But I want to look at it in a bit more detail, because on one side they're against, that's the people that say no, that was nothing to do with us, that was our ancestors who done that, and none of them are alive today, so we shouldn't pay out any reparations because it's not us. And then you've got the other side, which this is what I was going to take. And then you've got the other side, which is like, actually, we as a collective, as a country, benefited from like free labour, which is unheard of now, and all the hard work that the African slaves and Caribbean slaves put into that, maybe chopping down sugarcane for like 10 hours, maybe 15 hours a day, and getting whipped and all kind of stuff happening to them because of the colour of their skin, basically. And then it just made me think a little bit about this whole situation, and I look at I'll try to be fair in it and look at both sides, trying not to be biased about it. But I kind of feel like the side that was against paying didn't have really a lot to stand up to, like they were just saying, oh, we're not the people that actually done that. So we shouldn't be paying for it, basically. And I'm just thinking, in terms of everyone that lives in sort of the developed countries all around the world enjoys a certain standard of living which was achieved through slavery. However you want to look at that and however you want to digest that is the situation of the matter, really. And it's not about pulling sides, it's not about sort of pegging bad against evil, because what's happened is what's done is done, what's happened has happened. It's true, you can't go back and change it, but at the same time a lot's been achieved from off the back of having free labour, basically. And any business person will tell you one of their biggest bills that they pay is the labour costs. Labour costs is the biggest bill, especially in construction as well. To build an apartment or apartment tower block, above all materials and above obviously the second most expensive would be glass, but it's the labour costs. So imagine if you could build or you could grow a country, say, without any labour costs. So that's almost 100%. Almost 100% profit, markup profits. You know, obviously it's not, because obviously you've got shipping. You know, you obviously it wasn't in the, you know, some of these exotic places, you know, and bring it back to say London or Paris or I don't know, Belgium, say, you know, it would have been logistical to have like boats, horses, and all that, you know, and obviously the people that obviously run the boats and, you know, moved around the materials and whatever they you know, run whatever it was. All those people would have probably been paid, you know. So it's just, I just wanted to kind of look at it from a different standpoint and basically put my little pennies in and, you know, just try and look at it fairly. Now, yes, you know, the people who carried out the slavery aren't here today, but there are families that are very wealthy and still today in 2024 are still living off the proceeds of slavery. You know, they still have land around the world, and they're still very comfortable and living a very, very rich and lovely life off of the back of slavery. And yes, the slave owners themselves got sort of compensated. You know, I think Britain decided that they wanted to outlaw. So obviously, Great Britain then was the superpower of the world. Wanted to outlaw slavery. So what they done was they basically bought all the slaves and sort of set us free in a sense, you know. And that's how sort of, you know, made it illegal for people to have slaves. So I know it's a bit of a topic, and I know it's a topic not everyone wants to talk about, and I know it's a topic that it can be very triggering to people on both sides of the fence. It can be, but realistically, that's what happened, really. Do you know? And so the slave owners themselves got compensated through the Great British government of the time, and they was the ones who sort of got compensated for something that was technically is illegal today, but back then it wasn't. Back then it was increasingly big business, and a lot of countries, not just companies, but countries profited immensely from free labour. And today 2024, today's world, it isn't accepted today, but it still happens. There is countries that still, I'm not going to name them, but there are countries still that still have slaves going on, and it's crazy to think that that's the case. But it still happens today, and people are still subjected to these conditions of life, basically, and not be free. So, is the Caribbean? This is my questions. Or these are what's popped up in my mind. Is the Caribbean and African nations wrong for arts and reparations, or do you believe within yourself that obviously that was a time before we are today, 2024, and basically we should all just, you know, forget about what happened and just accept it, basically, and move on from it, you know? I'll just give a second just to think about that. Because it can be triggering. It can be triggering. I mean, to me, I'm almost triggered, to be honest. I'm almost triggered at the fact that the situations of what my ancestors personally went through, and, you know, even down to my name, is from the family that kind of at one stage owned us. You know, we've kept the names because we don't have original names. You know, that was all sort of disposed of when we was handed over with like a car or a property or something like that. And this was a situation back then. Obviously, in this country, slavery still in the UK still exists as well in the UK. It's not widespread, but there are still cases that come up from people that still do these things. So it's never fully eradicated, or it has been eradicated, but it's changed. I would like to say, because I feel like we're kind of all slaves, really, still. You know, because we live in a world where there's money, basically, and that is the money that is what enslaves us. We need it to eat, we need it to survive. If we don't have it, we can end up on the street or have a harsher life to live. You know, so everyone strives to have some kind of money, and you know, and it's the whole thing of just keep going and going and going until you drop, basically. It's something that more people don't realise, but that it's a form of slavery. Yes, we're not captive and we're not sort of held on a farm, and we are allowed to move around, but that also takes money. So money is what's enslaved us, if you ask me. So I feel like we're all slaves, technically, to our government, really, because our government uses us as, or I know the UK government does, uses us as leverage when it wants to apply for money, say, you know, from the open market. It uses our houses, it uses us as people, what productivity we have in order to, you know, that's going to help pay back that large billions and billions and hundreds of billions of pounds or whatever it is, you know. So that is something that the government does. So really, our government is our slave master of today, and it's not limited to. Look at the scribble on top of the thing, you know, and it's not limited to a specific race. It goes deeper than that. It's down to you know, because all races are the same in a sense. In terms of this new system that we've got, all of us are the same. We all have to survive, and the way that we survive is that we sort of get up every day, and we work hard to make some money, so we can, at the end of the week, end of the month, or something like that, we can try to live a more meaningful life without hardship. So we all do it. We all subject it. That's the businessman as well as the worker, to be fair. It's very wiggly. Chuck some buttons on. Right, I think that's good. Yeah, so we're all kind of slaves, really, and I feel like even if you get to a point in life where, you know, you have a lot of money and you're able to sort of slow down, you still find yourself still putting that work in. You still find yourself. And I find that a lot with some of the sort of the senior people. You know, they could stop, but they don't want to, because one, they probably become used to working, and two, they've got other interests that they also want to mature, and you know, for when they're not around, maybe. I don't know. I don't like to dive too deep into that because it's really none of my business. But I understand it. I understand why they don't give up and go, right, I'm just gonna go, you know, to a sunny beach somewhere, time in Spain, or you know, wherever around the world, and just live comfortable with what I've achieved through my working life. So yeah. So my questions really is one, should the wealthiest countries pay reparations? Should they do that? Are they protecting the wealth that was accumulated through some of these very rich families that seem to still be living comfortable from what they made back then? And it's still enough for them to, it's like generational wealth, which sort of, you know, every generation it continues to help feed the family from, you know, 300 years ago, like 400 years ago. Do you know what I'm saying? And is that fair? Is that fair? Or is it just like, okay, these people, that time was a time which that was acceptable, and we should accept that they can keep the wealth and the land and all the other things that was accumulated and that is tangible, that was accumulated off the back of slavery. And I'm looking at slavery as a whole, not just from the black race, because it was never only the black race that was enslaved. It was a number of different races that basically was subjected to that. And it wasn't just, I mean, blacks were the sort of, you know, blacks obviously were enslaved, but Irish was, Indians were, you know, so there's a lot. And if you look at Africa, for instance, Africa, for instance, if you split Africa into two, you've got the West and you've got the East. Now the West, it was Christians that mainly sort of went in there and, you know, enslaved people and colonized. And then on the East side, it was the Arabs done it, you know. So it's something that has been, you know, something that we don't have to talk about, because, you know, as I said, it triggers people, but that is the truth of the matter. It's the truth of the matter, really. So, you know, we don't want to forget it, because I personally cannot forget what happened to my ancestors. So it's all good you saying, oh, this, you know, that happened a long time ago. But yes, it did happen a long time ago. But my ancestors might have been subjected to rape, which happens quite often. Long hours working, getting whipped if you don't produce enough. You know, you think about that kind of life, man. Is this that bridge? I think it is. Yes, it is. It's lovely. So like, I'm sort of cross over this little bridge because it's not like I'm not racist. I'm not. I accept that's what happened back then, and I'm not gonna lie. I feel like there should be reparations paid. I feel like all the successful countries that can look back and say, yeah, and be honest about it. Yes, we profited. You know, we was able to profit from slavery. Should help in ways. I mean, you know, like for instance, we have a lot of African countries and people sort of, they get on them boats and they come over, say, to England, and people look at them sideways like, yo, what you doing there, man? Go back home, and it's like, if home hadn't been abused, say, would we want to leave? You know, as in Africans and as Caribbeans, or not just Africans. I said, practically everyone got enslaved in some shape or form. You know, it was a hierarchy, wasn't it? Would they want to leave? Would they have opportunities in their lands that would be enough for them to live a comfortable life, like how we enjoy it? Living in a more of a richer society that's obviously been manicured over many generations, building on top of building on top of building, and it's progressive over all these hundreds of years of just living and having everything you want because you're able to do it. You know, and it's like I said before about greed and envy runs this world, and I keep saying it, I keep coming back to it all the time. And I think it does. I think it does, because the greed again is what people see. You know, you've had hundreds of years of free labour. Hundreds of years. Imagine the growth of that. That's generational there, you know, in itself, you know. But no, I'm not racist, because I do accept that, you know, I can be bitter about it, yes, but it doesn't mean I'm racist. I can be bitter about how it was treated back then, and I can look at today and I can see like the stop and search. You know, it's more likely to be a black person to be stop and searched than say a Caucasian, and it just looks unfair. It looks unfair, and it's like this treatment is still going on, but just in different ways, you know. And if we was to forget about slavery, some of these things need to be really, really addressed, because it just makes people feel a certain type of way when we see how we're being treated. We look at other places around the world and we see how they're being treated, and deep down we all know that majority of the world that we see today, especially in the West, majority comes from slavery. Them little pennies added together with their own little pennies, which obviously which they was able to make and build things which benefits still today. Do you know what I'm saying? So that's how I'm seeing it. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. If you're right, if you think different, then obviously that's on you, isn't it? But it does make me wonder about some things, you know, and how people perceive things, you know. Is it fair that a continent so big like Africa, some parts of it is very undeveloped after all these years, but rich in minerals, rich in rich in what the land provides for it, you know, and still there's no growth in the countries, you know. I'm not saying all countries, but you know, some of the poorest countries around the world are from Africa, you know. And is that fair? Is that fair to say, oh, it wasn't us, so personally it wasn't us, so we don't think anything should be paid, even though you look at some of these historical buildings and we look at some of the place how it was developed all them years ago. We actually spent money and we actually allowed law to protect them, you know, like we have to rebuild it back the same way that it was made all them years ago, knowing that it was definitely built from slave money, you know, money that was produced from like production from things like rum, things like perishable goods, as well as like sugar. Sugar was a big thing. The Victorians loved a bit of sugar. They had a sweet tongue, and I think Arabs still have a sweet tongue. You know, they like a lot of sweet stuff. You know, so it was fed that kind of. It was fed. They lived off sugar. They lived off the work that slavery had put into, you know, and really we got raped and we got displaced. You know, they didn't want to educate us. Instead, they used to beat us and push us into the fields to carry on. And that was, you know, son working with grandfather and grandparents and what have you, working alongside each other, you know. And that was the life cut out for the average slave. And if you tried to run away, we will, you know, we're going to take out your mom, we're going to take out your auntie, we're going to take out your sister, we're going to take them all out. We're going to treat them bad. We're going to rape them. We're going to, you know. And when we catch you, we're going to do it in front of you to show you that you shouldn't have done that. This is what slaves, how they was treated. The slave owners, sometimes they treated us like that. Not every slave owner was bad. Some of them were quite decent and nice. Do just wanted the profit from it, but others went dived in deeper, and you know that may have scarred a generation that's moved on to another generation, that's moved on to another generation, that's moved on to another generation that we see today in 2024. And that's why you feel like some people are how they are. It's not because of they're messed up, it's because they might have been subjected, their family tree might have been so corrupted and damaged from how they was treated back then. It's actually like the genetics has changed due to it. So, do we need reparations? Should it be addressed more better? Should the people, even though it wasn't nothing to do with them today, 2024, should they accept that, you know what, our ancestors have done some bad and cruel things too? And you know, obviously we can never change history. History is history. We know we don't want to go back to that, and we know we put stops in the way to ever stop that from happening again. You know, we'll fight viciously if we ever saw anything like that move, like it was going to come back into reality post 2024. I respect that, but could we go further? Could we go further in that? Could we look at the situation? You know, if I'm going through a forest right now, Epping, yeah, and this forest would have been cut out by hand at some point. Someone would have manually done this with an axe or a saw, and I'm doing about 40 or 38, doing about 38, and all of this would have been cut by hand and moved with animals at some stage, because this country, I know we've just flopped a little bit, but this country would have been all forest, the whole way would have been forest. And what we see today is cities and towns, you know, dotted all around the UK. And the reason why, you know, one of the reasons was obviously for firewood. That's one of the reasons why a lot of trees might have been chopped down. And for houses as well, some of the old houses would have been made from wood. So a lot of that would have been building materials, you know. But man followed the animal, so the animal would have run through this first, and then the man would have just made it easier by chopping, you know, watching the way, which way the animals went, because they have their own kind of roads in nature. Obviously it's not paved, but they have their own roads, and they basically widen the road. So what we see today, so animals originally made this road for us, really. And man just used his materials, used his tools, if you like, to obviously widen it and make it into a road, so you can get maybe a horse and cart down there, so on and so on. So that's the development over hundreds of years. But again, all of that hard work that was done here would have been paid for over time by the hard work of slaves elsewhere. And this country is as I said, I've said it in previous, and I'm just talking about this country, but I'm talking generally, collectively, about the whole situation, if I can, all together, if I can. But obviously, I'm in the UK, so obviously I relate to things from the UK's perspective. But we could be in Canada, we could be in America, we could be in Australia. And I was in the shop the other day, and I was talking to quite an old guy, and he was trying to buy some cigarettes, and he was like, he'd just come back from Australia, he said to me, and we had a good little chat, mind you. He said, just come back from Australia, and he said, the pack of cigarettes are like half the size of what we've got over here, and he's having a right moan up about it, really old man, he's having a right moan up about it. Oh, look, you know, we can't have our own a way of doing things, and who does the Australians think they are? He said there was, and this is his words, not mine, I'm just quoting. He said they're all criminals, and I said, why would you say that? And he said, because we sent them over when we went to colonise Australia. this fact that hilarious. This fact that absolutely hilarious. Obviously, he's having a rant about things, but he felt the need to say that, and I just looked and I just thought, how bizarre him saying that to me. It was just hilarious. But then I thanked him. We had a little chat, and he had a walking stick. I think he'd been in an accident or something, because he had no, he didn't have walkers. He had crutches, but his leg had been, or his ankle looked like it'd been bandaged up by someone like professional, maybe a hospital or a nurse or something like that. So he was, I think he'd probably been stuck on a ward somewhere. And he'd been released to obviously go home and obviously continue healing at home, maybe. So the first thing he done was hobbled away to a co-op, which is like a shopping supermarket, if you like, over here. It's been I think it's the first supermarket ever in the UK. It's got a very long, it's either them or Sainsbury's, I can't remember which one it is. But so he obviously got his cigarettes to obviously go back and have a smoke, obviously back in his house or whatever or wherever he was going. I don't know where he was going, but and it just shocked me when he said that. And it's like, I never look at it like that, but most of these countries that we see, like obviously the US, for sure, Australia, probably Canada as well, was repopulated, obviously, because of the Aborigines, regardless of where they are in the world. They're still Aborigines by my standards, or we call them American Indians, what have you, Aborigines. They use the criminals. If you want to get out of jail, basically, we will send you abroad somewhere. We'll send you abroad, and you will go and recolonize Australia. You will be the presence of us, say our colour. You'll be our presence there, and you will build, and you will grow there, and you will sort of colonize whoever's there. Basically, that's basically what had happened, basically. And they come from Wales, they come from Scotland, and they come from England, Northern Ireland, Ireland by this point. So that's why I say it wasn't just black people that colonised. It was from different perspectives, of course. Because obviously, if you was a white slave, you would be a bit more privileged. But nevertheless, you're still a slave. You still had to provide money for the king of the time. And that's something that I think happens now today. I think St. Lucia was one of the places that I realised that you can't own any land, you can't own any property without paying. Obviously, it would be Charles III. Around the coast, because the crown owns it, if you like. And it was just an old law from St. Lucia that is still active today, 2024. It's still active, and it's something that if for instance, regardless of who it is, if you wanted to go and you found a little bit of a plot of land, I love this bit of plot. It's quite close to the sea. You would have to go and ask King Charles or a representative for him to ask if he was allowed to either have a building there, and to be, pay him indirectly to have that luxury. And St. Lucia still lives like that. So a lot of people live communities, because I've been to St. Lucia. A lot of communities, and so I think that's how they would prefer, live sort of up and sort of not near the coast. They live more in the mountains. St. Lucia's a lovely country, by the way. I absolutely love St. Lucia. But it just shows you some of these laws that we're still abiding by, even though people don't talk about them. They still exist from slavery. It's from the slavery days. They still exist. So back to that question again: should richer countries, developed countries, pay reparations? Because some of old ways of doing things are still prevalent in a lot of these African countries, a lot of these Caribbean countries, for instance, and everything is school teaching. Some of it is still done the way it was when sort of the colonialism was still around, and some African countries still have the same system in place. They might have upgraded it a little bit, but it's still based on the same system. Same thing like law, still based on British common law. And we're kind of still, I know people don't like to hear this, but we are kind of still under the feathers, if you like, from slavery. And you need to really dive into it. I know a lot of people just say, "Oh, when the will wasn't there, it was not like this," but we still live under the same laws, some of the same traditions, some of the things that we accept as norm are still from those days. Obviously, yes, we don't run around in chains anymore, and we have to be subjected to whatever was subjected to back then. I think we've covered it already. But nevertheless, this situation still happens, and I feel like it's hard to forget about things like that. If when you try to look above things like that come into your mindset, and it's like, whoa, hold on a minute. And you start thinking about it. You realise that actually a lot of the system is still in place. It's well hidden, and a lot of people don't understand these old rules, and they don't sit there and actually dissect them and look at them properly and understand. How can you be a free country, for instance, say St. Lucia, but still, you're not allowed to build near the coast. It's strange. It's really strange, but yeah, they're an independent country to a degree. To a degree, yes, but fully independent, no. I'm sorry, I can't have it. We're not fully independent. To be honest, we're never really happy, And it's even worse for some of the French colonies. They're actually even worse because France, unbelievably, it still feels like some of the places outside of France is still classed as like a region. Like how we've got Suffolk or we've got Essex. They see parts of the world as parts of France, even though it's nowhere near Europe. And I think we do as well to a degree, but I think the French are just a little bit more, worse with it, I think. So I'm not having digs, I'm just pointing out truths, really, to be fair, and looking at the whole situation for what it is. And I mean, it would be nice to see. It would be nice to be in a fair world. This is how I'd see it. In a fair world where everything was level, as in everything was level playing field. It would be really nice to have that. Where, for instance, black companies, black countries would be offered the same A+ rated to obviously to have money and to pay back loans and stuff. On a country level, we were like a C or D, or what do they call it? I actually can't remember. So it makes it very hard then for us. We don't pay the 0.1% back because apparently we are more likely to not pay it back. See, if we all had a fair playing field, we all went out and we all had the same as the next person, would that be easier? Would it? Would that help? Would that help if we got the same A+ standards for international money? Could we have that same standard? what would we like to do with it? Could we not be under any conditions of how we use that money? If we use that money to better what we believe it to be, what we see, without someone telling us, or another country telling us what we can spend that money on and how we spend it, and because that's basically what happens. For instance, if you go to the IMF or you go to the World Bank, there's conditions to the money. They don't just say, okay, you need to go to the World Bank because you need some money, what have you, to, I don't know, fund whatever you're funding. There'll be conditions to. I mean, pretty much like if you want to get a mortgage. If you want to get a mortgage, you put down some money, don't you? You put down some money. I don't know. You put down 20% of the house's value. Another way is to get a guarantor. The guarantor sort of, if anything happens, the guarantor, steps in and, whatever the guarantor's value in commodities, say, or, that will be subjected to payment back if something happened. But what if I was to tell you that's not the system for everybody? Some people can actually get really good rates, like, for instance, if you was a black person, your rate might be 7 or 8%, maybe even more. But if you're Caucasian, it might only be like 5 or 6%. So you're paying a little bit more just because of the colour of your skin. And what if I told you, if you was Muslim, for instance, you are not allowed by the Quran to pay anything more. And I think Jews are the same as well. You're not allowed to pay anything more than what the value is. So, for instance, you've got a new house, or you bought yourself you got a mortgage on a property, and that property, let's say you bought a property and it's, I don't know, £400,000, yeah, £400,000 you got to pay back for 25 years, whatever, 10 years. You sit that. But then the bank goes, yeah, you paid the 400,000, but we also want 70,000 on top. That's just being generous. So you pay 470,000 back in total. Yeah, that's how it works. But some religions will not allow you to pay the 70. You just pay exactly what it's worth. And I find that being a little bit unfair. So again, if you stack this up properly now, look at it properly, who's getting the worstest deal? Who's getting the best deal? I don't need to explain who that is, but if you look at racial qualities, religious qualities, you will see every time there's a certain race that gets the real short end of the straw in everything, in business, in work, in just mainly everything that you have to go out of your community to go and get. It's the hardest communities that gets the worstest deals, And I look at these things and I think to myself, how is this fair? And then for someone to go, we don't, we wasn't around when slavery was around, so why should we pay it back? But then you're still living off of all of those conditions. You're still kind of living on them conditions and able to have a better life, better standard of life. You provide that for your family a lot easier than, say, an African, say, or Caribbean, or Euro-Caribbean, or whatever. Do you know what I'm saying? And just again, is it fair? Is it fair? All those stacked against you making a better life for yourself, because I'll tell you, that's what most people want to do. In fact, that's more what all people want to do, regardless of what race you come from or where you are in life. Everyone wants to have a much better life. They want to live an easy life without too much hardship. No one says, I want to have a really harsh life. I don't think there is anyone out there who does that, who wants that for themselves and their family. So, but why is there layers to this? Why is it not set as even? I was watching something and someone said, you know what, it's like someone had a third arm, a third hand, and then you had only 2 hands, could you to juggle would be a lot easier. If you got three hands instead of 2, you could juggle a lot easier, couldn't you? And it's almost like that situation, It's not fair, man. And then, some people just don't see it. They don't understand it. Maybe because they're collecting from off of the value of that. I don't know, but it's very clean cut for me to see the situation for what it is, really. I wonder why certain countries don't have the same standard of living, and that's the reason why. Yes, there's a lot more behind it, but these are some of the reasons why it is what it is. And we all work hard. We all work just as hard as the next person. But again, it's not the same. It's not the same. The rewards aren't the same. So it's just something to think about. Should we have reparations? Should we? Is that something that we could do? I think a country like the UK, like a mortgage, over 50 years, over 100 years, something like that, you start paying back 200 billion. I think that's a good idea, and I think if the whole of Europe gets on top of that, and every country that had foreign, if you like, foreign countries underneath their belt, should be subjected to paying some sort of reparations. Especially if you don't want Africans and Caribbeans to come into your country and you're making it extremely hard for them. Now, we don't want handouts. Give us proper, like I said before, like a fisherman. If you showed a potential fisherman, how to fish, you don't need to come and ask for fish. Obviously, there's fish inside the water first, but do you know what I'm saying? It's got to be fair. It's got to be fair. And I feel like we've put in a lot to the world. Black people of ethnicity has put a lot into this world, whether people want to accept that or not. We put a lot into this world. We are like, we built the foundations for what we see today. That hard work, it was some, not all, but it was from slavery that made the situation how we see today, the comfortability that we see today. Some of that comes from slavery, regardless of how you want to look at that and how you want to accept that is the case. That basically happened, and as I said, there's some families out there that are really, their family, their genetics has been real damaged because of what they experienced back then. And obviously, it's funny because I'm driving around a really nice part of town. It's like Chigwell. It's really nice down there. You've got some big houses down there. I'm not saying these people are the ones who. I'm not saying that at all. I'm not saying that. But I'm just saying, they've got some really big houses. Traditionally, this would have been a really nice sort of this would have been London. This would have been out of London at this stage. This would have been a really nice town to live in, an affluent place to live in back then, and still is today. Do you know? Okay, so we're coming up to 48 minutes, I think. See there. So that was 48 minutes of just talking about slavery and reparations, and looking at the situation a bit more deeply, a little bit more contextual, and looking at everything and asking serious questions, looking at the imbalances of how the situations have unfolded over these hundreds of years, and looking at today, and looking at yesterday, if you like, things that happened to slaves and stuff back then, and looking at tomorrow as well. So I think, like a mortgage, that's not a lot of change. 200 billion, it sounds like a lot of money, but to some of these rich nations, it actually isn't. And mean, 200 billion is what maybe be spent on nuclear deterrent, say, over the same amount of time. Maybe not 100 years, maybe over 40, 50 years, you know. And you know, that's the situation. So the money can be found. The money has been spent prior to you know, prior to this conversation. So listen, have a talk amongst yourselves and ask yourself really and truly, is it fair? Is it fair? From perspective of me and what I've just brought to the table, I'm sure there's many different arguments to go hand in hand with it. And it's not about trying to start a problem. It's not about trying to create issues or divide people or anything. It's not about that. It's just about looking at the situation for what it is and actually being honest and not hiding behind the fact that I wasn't personally involved with it, so I shouldn't have to pay it. Because I feel like indirectly you're living off the proceeds in a way. This is my own understanding of the situation. And I'm going back to the panel that was on a news channel here in the UK. So I'd love to put that up, but I don't think I'm really be allowed to do that, to be honest. I think YouTube has something to say about that. So I'm not going to put that up on there, you know, the actual debate that they had, because it was a little bit one-sided, even though they claim to be you know, looking at the situation from both sides. I still think it was a little bit one-sided. One, there wasn't anyone of ethnicity that was there, someone that could really put forward views that would help the communities of my race, say, be understood. You know, it's like two chickens talking about the slaughterhouse. Oh yeah, we don't think slaughter should be done, you know, to chickens. Of course, two chickens are going to say that. You know what I mean? Oh, we do like, we know chicken tastes nice, one of them will say. Another one was like, no, we're vegan. Do you know? It's like that sort of, like, you know, obviously, of course, it's going to be a little bit corrupted, a little bit biased. But I respect that they had put that to you know, they put that sort of situation and not made it. I tried to make it as fair as possible as they could, but I think it was still a bit off, if I'm honest with you, because you know, like I said, two chickens going to the slaughterhouse, you know, of course they don't want to get slaughtered. Anyway, it's a short one today. It's just under an hour today, and it's getting a bit dark. I don't know if this is going to show too well. I don't really like the cameras on these, the night cameras on these phones anymore. I don't think they're that great. They don't pick up a lot, and it's a lot of blur. So we'll see how this comes out. We'll see how good it looks. But I can tell you now, looking at the screen and looking at the outside, actually looks more darker outside than it does on the camera. So just so you know, it's a lot darker right now. It does look a lot brighter on the camera, I can honestly say. But no, thank you for listening. If you've listened this far, I hope I haven't triggered anybody, because it wasn't something I want to trigger. I just want to have a grown-up conversation, you know, with actual people that are actually going to look at the situation for what it is and not be tatty or petty over it. We don't need any petties. We don't need any petty betties. We don't, because it doesn't get us anywhere when we're just trying to, you know, let's look at something seriously and have the right people look at it, rather than people that are going to be a bit petty about it. Because unfortunately, there's a lot of betties around, a lot of petty betties around who do petty things, and it's just, you really got time for that, then you have, you know, it is what it is. But you know, but I call for the people that are really going to add value to conversations and actually going to look properly, and not the ones that's just disruptive, just out to make you look bad, or they've got an agenda. I mean, we've all got agendas, ain't we? But yes, it's been a pleasure having a drive and talk with you today. Hope you've enjoyed the content. I still would like some more likes and shares and some more subscribers. It would be nice. It would be nice to have more than 3. But nevertheless, if it's only 3 that want to subscribe, then it's only 3 that want to subscribe. But listen, once again, thank you so much for the drive and talk. You know, we said. Again, I don't want to trigger anybody. It's lovely that we can sit and talk about things that are not sort of, you know, like blase type things that can trigger you, things that can be talked about with the right people and come to a really good idea of collectively, you know, let's look at the situation for what it is. Years and years later, maybe back then they couldn't see see what they saw. Maybe we can now, you know. So I ask that everyone just always remembers that, you know, we're all brothers and sisters regardless of our race. All brothers and sisters. That's often for them. All brothers and sisters regardless of where you're from. Yeah, we're all brothers and sisters, and we need to see each other like that. And it's not about dividing anyone due to their colour of their skin or their race or what have you. It's about trying to move past that and talking about the things that keep us divided to try and bring us together. I hope that's understood. I hope people understand that. I hope people understand my intent, and it's not it's not a disguised racist way of, you know, trying to say, look, you need to give us this, because I'm not. I'll put some ideas forward which probably might work, you know, and to other people it might not. So it'd be nice to hear. It'd be nice to hear it all. Listen, thank you so much, and I wish you all the absolute best. Thank you. Lighthouse 1111 Spiritual.